I think if we can just get back in tune with ourselves, because that is, if you look at what's going on in our world, it's because people are so disconnected from their souls. And so if we can just get back to that place of understanding ourselves at that deeper level and learning how the human condition works as a result, we not only could heal, but man, we could solve a lot of problems of the world.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jock here. This is Optimizing Human Potential. And today I've got a fascinating guest. We're having a really great, a fascinating conversation. And it kind of boils down to, what is your perceptions of what the soul is? There's this whole idea of the soul exists in indigenous cultures throughout history, but it's probably one of the greatest anomalies that exist in the world. And I love my guest today because she says that she lives between science and woo, and I think that's absolutely amazing. So welcome, my guest and member of the Holistic Network as well, Dr. Katherine Kelly, who is known as the soul healing expert, or if I don't know if I remember that. Katherine, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's so fun to be here, and I know we could have a very long conversation.
Oh my
So
God, yeah. Well, this is the 4th of July as well, and of course, and you know, we don't realise this. It's holiday times, and people, people want to go out and get their burgers, and and God knows what else. So, but I suspect that you'll be back on Optimize, because we can never unpack what it is that you do, at all in the space of an hour. It's not going to happen.
Sure.
Anyway, let me get away from that. Would you tell everybody a little bit about your history?
Sure.
And you're very academic, but I love the fact that you're experiential. I like to say, you come from experience as well, which is fascinating to me. So
Absolutely.
over to you, Katherine.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the traditional side first and then the holistic side. So I knew when I was about 15 years old that I was supposed to be a psychologist. And I find that extraordinary because I work with a lot of people who still don't know what they're supposed to do with their lives, and I try to coach them along. But and this is where I'll interject the whole idea of the soul, because all of us have a different soul path. We all have a different path we're supposed to follow. I just happen to have one that I think was created by the universe to basically lay out a whole lot of stuff. So I knew I was supposed to be a psychologist about age 15. Went immediately into, it was seriously. I mean, I look back and I think, I don't know how I knew that, but it was literally, it was the second week of an honors psychology class I took. And I was like, yep, this is it. And from that point on, I was just like gung ho, this is what I'm supposed to do. But this is where the soul comes in. Is like, I think I just knew, because that part of me was activated and knew, wow, this aligns with me. And I also knew from a very young age, probably age 4 or 5, that I was supposed to do a lot in this lifetime. So I think, universe was like, chop, chop, let's get this going. And so went right into a bachelor's degree psychology, went right into a master's degree, right into a doctoral degree in psychology, then went right into doing a postdoc in family medicine, because I knew very early, partially my dad had an accident when I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I know that was all part of the plan for me, because I became very interested in health in general and holistic health and how all the pieces and parts fit together. And I think as a very young person at age 9, I was already observing what was happening within my dad's life and world, and how it kind of trickled down and affected the rest of us. So very early, my training in holistic health started. And all the while through this, and then let me finish that academic piece. Then after the postdoc, I became the director of behavioral science and family medicine here at Wake Forest University. Thought that was where I was supposed to go. And within about a year and a half, I'm like, oh my God, this box is so small, I can't do this. So ended up about 3 years later, weaving myself into private practice. My practice was full within 5 weeks. Boom, everything opened up. But all the while, all the way back to middle school, I remember experiences that were, to me,
Mm.
very normal. But my very first experience that was so poignant, and I was sitting in my bedroom, and for whatever reason, I looked over at my desk and I said, "Oh, that's going to fall in like 30 seconds." And like 30
A
seconds
little bit of
later,
precognition, like feeling the future, as Daryl Bem would say.
yes. And so about 30 seconds later, that thing fell.
Wow.
I'm like, how did I know that? And back then you don't
Yeah.
really know it's weird. You don't know it's like
No, you don't.
extraordinary.
No.
You don't, you just go with it. And so I had several
That's right.
things like that happen. And then when my father passed, so he was put in the hospital 2 days after my 21st birthday
Mm.
and
Oh, it's hard.
immediately on a ventilator. So 17 days of just grueling, not sure what was
Oh,
going to happen. On Christmas Day that year, I'm a Sagittarius. On Christmas Day that year, we found out he was not going to make it. And
wow.
it was an interesting thing. And I'm telling this story because this is how the woo and science kind of started to come together is he was on a ventilator. The priest came and did the final blessing, had this
Right.
very poignant experience with him, eye to eye, which I know was soul to soul. And I think that
Mm.
was my first like real awareness of connecting with someone from a soul level. And then that night, it was about 1:30. Well, it was about 12:45 in the morning. I had this dream that he and I were sitting in this conference room. We were just talking. Everything went dark. I went calling to him, and I woke up sitting on the edge of my bed, and the phone rings. It was the nurse. They said, "You need to get back down here. He's going." And
Right.
so, putting two and two together again of that precognition of what was about to happen.
I was going to say that because it's still and it's anticipated grief as well. But that really, for me, that comes from a precognitive sense.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that, again, that was so poignant for me. And I didn't tell anybody about that for years because it was like, okay,
Wow.
I just kind of thought, okay, this is just me knowing, whatever.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
I was the one that went, got my mom and got the rest of my family. So we need to go back down. So from that point on, I started having more and more and more what other people would think are strange experiences to me, but they just felt very normal. And like,
Right.
okay, I don't know how I know this. All the way up through when I really started learning about energy and energy work. And I started taking energy classes actually during my internship for my doctoral degree. And that is one thing I would say anybody who wants to understand the soul really should start to understand how energy works because
Amen.
it is a flow and it is,
Yeah.
it is just something. And again, I completely think the universe set that up for me because I took pranic healing classes, and then I got here in North Carolina and started taking Reiki classes, and then started taking other classes, all the while having God, universe start to speak to me, all this other stuff start to happen. And again, I never thought it was strange. I just thought, okay, this is great. I'll just work with this. And then when I started to realize that I was doing this was when I was in my private practice. I was doing some deep meditations and visualizations with clients, and they were starting to have spontaneous past life memories coming up.
Right. Okay.
And so it wasn't a big deal to me. I just walked them through it, helped them with that part of the healing. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, not everybody's having these experiences. And being a credentials person, I thought, well, let me go train. And so I got trained by Brian Weiss. Beautiful soul, really beautiful soul.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What's these? Oh, yeah. I've read his books from the past.
Yeah, he's kind of the guru
Many
of
souls,
life
many
work.
lives.
Yeah,
Many souls. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
many masters, many lives.
Many masters. Many. Yes.
He's got
Yes.
many,
Yes.
many books.
Iconic book actually in the field. That was.
Very iconic, and he's the
Mm.
guru. He's like the one,
Absolutely.
especially in the United States and parts of Europe, that are
Mm.
really, he's the one that has blazed the trails. So I trained with him. I did some training for Akashic Record reading, soul realignment reading, some shamanic practitioner stuff. So because I'm so curious,
You
and
just
yet,
wanted to learn everything, didn't
yeah, I do, and I'm still learning, and I still want to
you?
learn.
You're like me. Yeah, exactly. I
That's
love
why
it.
that's why I say it's like I live somewhere between science and woo because I love the
Yeah.
learning process. But the more I've been able to do that, the more I've been able to find the language to help people understand the soul and how it specifically shows up in our human condition. So that's really what I'm about.
So you know what, let's
I
dive
think we
into that
locked up.
because as we said, we chatted just before as well, and
Jock, I
People
think we
don't
locked
really
up here.
understand what the soul is.
There
You
we
know,
go.
from my experiences in mediumship and working as a medium over 2 decades, then I have a good grounding and things. But I can go online and you can go onto YouTube and you can go into so many gurus, so many holistic people, and there's so much conflicting information, and there's so much information that just doesn't really fit. It's kind of labeled as something mysterious, and it's just all imbalanced. So let's talk about that, because people are going to be interested in it. People have there's a religiosity side of it. There's a religious idea, dogmatic view of what the soul is, and then we have a more nuanced kind of holistic view of what the soul is. But in your opinion, what is the soul?
So the most basic way that I can explain it is that is really the energetic essence of who we are. So
Mm-hmm,
there's not
mm-hmm.
a place in the body that exists. You can't dissect a body and find it, but is the energetic essence of who we are. So I don't even go down the religious path, because if you think about it, there's 8.6 plus million or billion people on this planet, and that means there's 8.6 billion different souls. That doesn't mean that it goes to a certain religion. So all of us still operate under that soul perspective. And I'm hoping that that makes sense. So to me, also, it's very difficult to define the soul. You actually have to experience the soul. And I'm not sure if that, makes sense, but I think that is something that I try to help people understand, is that that's my mission, is to help people experience it so they can know how to work with it and develop a relationship with it. And it's not something separate than you, but it's something that if you understand that's just an aspect of you, that's actually the deepest aspect of who you are, you can learn how to master the human condition by understanding the soul.
Now you have a great outlook where you suggest in your writing and in your work that the soul expresses itself in the body, a very somatic way of expression. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit, because that kind of dives into a lot of your expertise and what you teach and what you're working with. How does the soul express itself somatically in the body?
So, great question. And I have a fantastic example. So, again, everything's energy. So if you think about everything being energy, I call, like, when we have wounds, whether they're physical wounds or emotional wounds, traumatic
Yeah,
wounds, I talk about, and I have to do this visually to some extent, but it's like the energetic imprint that is left on the soul. So it's kind of like a
yeah,
fingerprint, or, like an old mimeograph machine where there is a little blip in the screen. And so you'd get a mark on the page that would come out. Unless you knew it was there, you wouldn't really know what to
yeah.
do with it. But when it comes to the somatic kind of responses, what happens is the energetic imprint that is left to me on the soul's essence can manifest in the body. And oftentimes it's because either that person has some unresolved, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, all the time. That means that there's some sort of unresolved issue, whether it's this lifetime or previous lifetimes, that can manifest directly within your physicality, because
Mm.
your physicality is an expression of who we are as a soul, just as much as our emotions are and our psyche is and everything else. So I'm going to give you an example of this. So I had a client who called for a past life reading, and I did it on Wednesday. He's Indian by heritage and culture, and he called because he's got this pain. He just, in his contact sheet, said, I have this chronic pain. I feel that there's some sort of blockage. I don't understand what it is. No doctor has been able to help me figure out how to heal this. And when I got on the video with him, I said, very first thing I said was, okay, when I did the meditation, first thing that came was that, and I need to ask this, is the pain in your lower right back and your legs? And his eyes just kind of grew, and he said, that's exactly where it is, and that's where it originated. Now it's almost all over my body. I said, okay.
Wow.
So when I continued, I said, well, here's the deal. I said, it's uncomfortable sometimes to share this information, but when I look back, and it was 2 lifetimes ago, when I look back, you were actually crushed. But it was before cars existed and trucks existed, but you were
Yeah.
crushed by some sort of like large wagon or something. It wasn't a house, but he was crushed by it and pinned by it. And he basically, as I was telling him the story, you could see his eyes and he's like, gosh, that makes so much sense. He said, I've always
It
felt
has
like,
that aha moment.
Yeah, and
And
it's
it's
sort of
it's a remembering. It's
yeah,
almost that it connects.
yeah, and it's the energetic resonance. And see, that's why
Yeah.
I say everything is energy. And as I tell the story of his soul from previous lifetimes, like you said, his current life could connect in with it and go, oh my gosh, that's it. Because you can literally, like, I'm right now getting chills, and like, they're not really chills in my body, but it's like when you connect with that energy, you
Yeah.
know you're on target. And so I explained that this lifetime, he's back then anyway, he was pinned there. He was left. He thought he was going to die. He actually wanted to die at that point because he was in so much pain. And actually, in that lifetime, someone eventually found him, and then he lived the rest of his life basically immobilized. He couldn't work, he couldn't provide all these things. And he said, "Oh my God, that's what I feel now." And I said,
Mm.
"That's it." I said, "That's how we need to heal previous lifetime imprints in order for you to get past this. Because if no doctor that you've gone to has been able to find the origin of this, then
It has to be a spiritual condition.
it has to be something from the soul."
Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, hopefully that explains your question.
I find it fascinating because I often, as my work in afterlife research and things, I often, I know that past life evidence from an empirical point of view is probably the greatest evidence that we have
Mhm.
of an existence of an afterlife, because there's been so many programs, documentaries out. There's one that I watched. It was Ghosts in My Children,
Mm.
and just as like you're saying, is their experiences from these past lives are carried into this life that we have now. And I actually wrote a book on past life experience
Wonderful.
from a perspective of a total skeptical medium, and by the time that I had finished, I was a total 100% believer.
You were a bit
I
skeptical.
was like, yeah, okay, I was a bit stupid
Yeah,
actually refuting this at the beginning, but now, I'm on this journey and I can see it.
yeah.
But it also, it kind of begs the question as well. If we're having these experiences that are reflecting in our life now and it's somatically coming out in the body, how do we heal that aspect? Because some people don't understand. Can we, this is the soul always, is the soul always perfect? Is there an imbalance? And also, and I think it's a double jointed question because then people misunderstand the difference between the higher self and the soul.
Yeah,
Is the higher self and the soul the same?
yeah.
Is one out of balance and the other out of balance? Or as we took looking at one thing, and how do we go back and rectify those issues?
Yeah. So absolutely we can heal the soul at that level. And in fact, I'm going to continue on with the story with him because this will illustrate what you're asking. After that, I asked him, I said, okay, because I was still kind of in that space where I was hearing what spirit was
Yeah.
saying. And I said, have you ever had any form of energy work? And his eyes grew. He's like, yeah, I just had my first session like a week and a half ago. And I said, okay, perfect. And he said, I'm not sure it did anything. I said, well, how intuitive do you feel like that person was? And he said, well, I think she was pretty intuitive. I said, okay, here's the deal. Energetically, in order to start this process of healing, tell her the story of what I just said, as far as the past life crushing of his body. And I kind of told him where to have her work in his body, because that's the thing. We can heal the soul, but traditional practitioners don't know how to do that. And since basically what happens is that
Mm-hmm.
although our soul becomes imprinted with all of our experiences from this lifetime or any previous lifetimes, we have to remember that every one of our experiences are here for our soul's evolution in one way or another. So the challenge is, we have to keep that optimism and keep that idea of, well, we can actually take this further. But if we get in that place where we don't think we can get past it, we're not going to get past it. So we can heal the soul. Will the memory of that incident ever go away? No. But
Mm.
the energetic impact of it can be, I don't want to say erased, but it can be lessened or neutralized so that you don't experience the pain in your body currently.
I like to think of it
I don't know if
as,
that helps for you.
yeah, I kind of like to think of it as going back in time and rewriting because your soul has a power
I think we
and
are
has
locked up again.
is a divine authority, and you could go back to that imbalance and kind of rewrite it. So But of course, where do you think then that practitioners are going wrong? Because practitioners then are not able to discern between an energetic block in the body and maybe an energetic imbalance in the soul.
Yes. And it's kind of like a nick on something. You get a little nick on something, and again, if you don't know to look for it and you
Yeah.
don't know how to look for it, you're not going to heal it. But it's like that's where I think the holistic practitioners can really come in handy, and working with traditional practitioners, if that bridge would ever be created, because now he's going to be able to go back and do some of his physical healing in a whole different way.
Catherine, let's look at how, as examples, and you've given me a great example of how that person has an imbalance in his soul had manifested in his daily life. But let's have some other examples. What other kind of conditions could manifest somatically in the body? And also, because we're both psychologically oriented in our studies, but how obviously can that affect the psyche through spiritual crisis as well? Yeah, so I'm interested in how this manifests in people's lives, not just somatically in the body, but psychologically. So maybe let's talk about some examples of that.
So let me give you the quickest example that will touch a lot of people's worlds. Tricky relationships.
All right.
So when we have tricky relationships, and I put out a video 2 years ago, kind of partially as a joke, that I call sticky family karmic shit.
I love that. Sticky family karmic. I see that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I could make money on some of the things
I
that come
think
out of my mouth.
you could absolutely.
Yeah, and basically, so when we have these sticky, like really confusing relationships, whether they are with family or whether they're with friends or colleagues or whatever, when there's this really sticky dynamic, and no matter what you do, it's like you're just butting heads,
Mm-hmm.
it is always karmic. It is always that there's lessons to learn in the person's present day lifetime, but it's always the case that they had some sort of past life interaction or relationship with them that explains why they're having it now. And so, I can tell you, been as a psychologist, I've been doing mental health work for 37 years. How many people come in going, I don't understand why I don't relate to my mom or my father or my, brother or a colleague or whatever it is.
Oh, I get that. I get that.
Yeah. And yeah, that's why I
Sorry,
thought
man.
I'd bring it up,
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
everybody has this. So when you have these sticky
Yeah.
kind of karmic shit kind of things, it's like, it's this whole idea of, okay, well, if you really want to understand it, let's go back. Let's go back to previous lifetimes, because you can almost always understand. And I'm going to give you an example and this is partially how I learned, but you can go back, or people who can do the past life work can go back and help paint the story for them. Go, oh, well,
Mm.
this is the dynamic. That was the relationship you had in that lifetime. This was the unfinished business. This is why it's carrying over. This is what you're supposed to do in this lifetime. So it connects dots. It helps people put things together. So my example of this is one of my own siblings. I was the youngest of five, and big family. My dad, like I said, had an accident when I was 9. So basically, dynamic very much changed. But I was like the oldest soul of everybody in my family. And so I kind of kicked in. I helped a lot. I just jumped in. Well, my sister, who's 3 years older than me, um, toward the end, this was after my dad passed, but toward the end of my mom's life, it became very sticky. And I'm like, what is
Mm.
going on here? And it was very uncomfortable to try to interact with her during those last few years of my mom's life. And I'm like, what is this? What is this about? So I went back and did my own past life work and realized that in previous lifetime, we were brothers and we were in a family. It was like the medieval times. And I was the next one in line for
Oh,
basically to be in charge of the family once my
were you
parents.
jealous?
She was jealous.
Oh, she was jealous, right?
She was
Okay.
jealous.
I know I was
And
getting it.
and yeah, you were getting it. And that's the whole point. And she actually, I watched this unfold. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense, because she had me killed. She actually, in that lifetime, had me killed. I saw, someone come up behind me. I couldn't see
Did
the
you
person.
tell her this?
Oh no, she doesn't understand all this
She
stuff.
don't, I was going to say, I can imagine the conversation around
She
the dinner
can't go there.
table. You
She
killed
can't
me
go there.
in a past life.
Yeah, she can't go there. But it was so helpful for me to go, oh my gosh, that's why this is. Because I never did anything cruel to her. I never did anything mean
No.
to her. Growing up, I mean, I was I was the youngest, and she, I'm sure, had issues with the fact that, I got a lot more um, breadth of, parents as they get old, as you have more children, you kind of, you don't parent the same way. Let's put it that way. But the thing is, I was always the one that helped. I was always the one that was like right by my mom or dad helping. But it made so much sense to me because the more I achieved, the more books I wrote, the more degrees I got, the more distant she became, and I never understood it until I did my own
Wow.
past life work. And when I understood the sticky family karmic shit, I'm like, oh, that's what this is about. And even though it was still unpleasant to finish out the time until my mom passed, and even after that, and then a brother passed away last year and it got sticky again. But it's
Wow.
like I understood the karmic dynamic of it. So for me, I'm like, okay, I know what it is. I'm not going to take this personally.
Mm.
But I did what I needed to do in this lifetime to heal and move forward
I would
without.
just was going to be my next question. Did
Yes.
you take that shadow work on and start to work
Yeah.
on that yourself? And did that dynamic then change between the two?
But for me, yes. For her, no.
Yeah,
Because
but
she,
you're the only. I mean, essentially, it doesn't necessarily need to change for her, but it needs
yeah,
to change the way because
yeah,
I'm always a big believer, Catherine, that we cause our own suffering for the judgments that we make. Nobody needs to forgive you. You don't need to forgive them. You need to
yeah,
forgive the judgment and let go of the judgment because that's
yeah,
what creates the suffering.
yeah.
So it's fascinating that
Yeah.
you've aligned that in yourself.
And I think I've been like my best teacher in some ways because all of
Yeah, haven't
this
we
past
all?
life work, and it's like, okay, making sense of it has been
Yeah,
so helpful in helping other people. And so when I was able to go, okay, this isn't even about me,
yeah.
because I was always a pleaser. I was always someone who just didn't like people being mad at me or whatever. And for me, it's like, oh, wait, this isn't even about me. So I could heal my soul's part of it and basically detach from whatever she was dealing with and realize, okay, that's on her. I can't fix any of that. I can't, this isn't even my job to. So that is just one other way that this manifests is we can have soul stuff manifest in relationships, in health kinds of concerns, mental health
Mm.
concerns. We can have, my Soul of Psychology book series. I'm taking individual psychological concerns and
I
helping
noticed that you've
people.
started doing that one for anxiety, and you've got different ones. That's
Depression.
yeah.
Then I'm working on trauma and grief, and then there's going to be many, many others after that. But I'm basically teaching the soul side of each one of these mental health conditions. And also, I do a lot about soul age, helping people understand that soul age has a lot to do with how we experience our own human condition and how we
Wait,
experience
soul
others.
age. That's fascinating. That's not a concept I've even thought about. Tell
It
me
can
about
make
that.
such a huge difference. So there are a
Wow.
few authors out there that have put some stuff out there, and frankly, like you said earlier, it's not overly helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
And
A lot of
so,
it's self-serving as well, I think, is what's
yeah,
out there.
yeah, and so I have what I call a soul age spectrum, where I've actually looked at souls from 10 different levels, from all the
Mm.
way from infant soul to ancient soul, and basically, literally. Um, identified the milestone they have to reach to get to the next level, the value, I mean, so basically, if you have someone who's a young soul, they're going to struggle in different ways than an older soul is. And so
Yeah, that's where that old saying comes in. He's an old soul in a young body.
yeah,
Absolutely. I get that. I totally get that.
so a lot of times I'll teach people, if we have, like, if a parent comes in that are trying to figure out what the heck is going on with their kid, sometimes I will help them identify the age of that kid's soul so that they learn how to communicate with them differently.
Mm.
Because even though you have a 14-year-old, if they're functioning at a, you know, 3-year-old level from an emotional maturity standpoint, you have to communicate differently. So it's like this higher level parenting that you can do. If you have, in my case, if you have two parents, my mom was actually a fairly young soul. My
Right.
dad was an older soul, but he was kind of broken because of his accident.
Mm.
He had had a lot of depth to him, but I didn't know it until after he died. And so it's like, I really feel like I parented myself because at age 9, parenting for the most part was done. I mean, my mom was very busy trying to take care of finances and everything else. And I look at my siblings even, and the younger soul siblings did not do well at all.
Wow.
The older soul, I was the oldest soul in the entire family, but it's like I see how the others struggled, and I've kind of aged them, meaning I know kind of where their soul age is. That also has to do with how many lifetimes you've had,
Yeah.
how much wisdom you've actually mastered within each one of those lifetimes. I do have to say this, people have come to me and said, oh, I found out I've had over 1,000 lifetimes. And I tell people,
I
well,
kind of laugh at that when people are, how do you know, I mean, that's like
well, as if it's like
constantly.
this badge of courage.
Or also, do you find as well, Catherine, that they use it as a crutch? Like, I'm this way because of this.
They
I'm this way because of this past life. I had an experience, therefore I'm allowed to be like this.
Yeah, they do. And you know, I'm going to give this example of this person that was so proud of having 1,000 lifetimes, because the first thing I thought of was, well, that means you didn't learn very much in those
I was going.
lifetimes.
I was exactly going to say as well. Well, you never learned much. Then you had to keep coming back.
Yeah. So when people say, oh, they've had all these lifetimes, I'm like, that doesn't mean very much. The other thing I want to throw out there, that in every reading I do, this is something, I've been a curious soul all of my life. I've had lots of readings. I love to just kind of tap into different kinds of ways people do their readings. So I just listen,
Yeah.
just have these readings. But I am the only person I know that one of the first things I do when I do some sort of reading for a person, whether it's an Akashic record reading or a soul realignment reading or a past life reading, I identify, is that soul a male soul or a female soul? Because you can have male souls in female bodies and vice versa.
Mm.
The other thing I do is I look at what percentage of their human lives have been a male or female, because
All
that
right.
will tell you a lot about how they are coping or functioning in their current lifetime. Because
Wow.
if for instance, I have a couple female clients who, once I told them, well, most of your lifetimes in previous lives have been male, they're
Yeah,
like,
makes sense.
and they'll be like, oh my God, that makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Yeah.
And I have a friend, in fact, I'm having lunch with her today. Years ago, she was saying something about her husband and how basically, she felt like she was the one that had to go fix everything in the house. And I said, well, you were a male in most of your
Yeah.
lives. Of course you
You
are.
were a carpenter back in the
And yeah, and
day.
she said, oh my God, that makes so much sense because I'm the one who grabs the hammer.
Right.
Like,
See?
so there's so much context that a person can get about their current life according to what their dynamics have been in their previous lifetimes, that not only can explain their current life, but can help them in their current life. If we can really understand the path of our soul from previous lifetimes, we can really explain and help ourselves in this lifetime. So there's so many different levels and dynamics. It's just kind of a fun way to paint the picture.
Let me ask you this, because this is also something that I find that people misunderstand as well. And I mean, we'll need to do some other episodes on soulmates and everything else. But what about intertwined souls? Do you believe that souls are intertwined, or have you had experiences where one soul has been intertwined with another?
Yeah. So wow. So yeah, that is a whole other episode.
It is. That's kind of what I'm leading on to, because I mean this one's been fun, but we're breaking up in all so we'll definitely need to do several more episodes on this, because this is fascinating, and I want to jump on as well and talk about your training and your course that you offer to practitioners.
Sure.
But I find that interesting because I see so many people arguing about soulmates and intertwined souls, and so let's just give a broad line of view of that, where your perspective.
Yeah. So, again, everything's energy. So
Yeah.
basically, we have to look at relationships as energy too. And whatever souls come together, basically, there's and I have this whole other thing we'll talk about as far as, in future interviews, but I call it the magnet metaphor, that the universe had to create a way to draw souls together to be able to learn whatever they're supposed to learn according to their interactions with that soul.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so basically, here's this magnet metaphor. And so whether it's a twin flame, whether it is a soulmate or a divine mate, whether it is a soul sister, a soul brother, whatever it is, that energy that again was created for us to come together, It is all for the sake of our evolution in one way or another. But as a human, we're in this from a human condition perspective. Oh, this is the best thing ever. And then shit, here comes some sort of, the magnet flips. And basically you're like, what the heck? I thought this was wonderful. Well, that's where, again, that karmic stuff kicks in
Yes.
to make you uncomfortable enough to learn whatever you're supposed to learn for your highest good. Now, a lot of times what people will do is try to do everything they can to get that magnet back together, whereas that's not always what's supposed to happen. So I really think that's where these twin flames come in and these soulmates come in and divine mates, because they're all there for our sake of learning and evolution. But boy, can it be tumultuous. So that discomfort of the human
It is.
condition.
And you know what? I mean, I can think of loads of different episodes that we can do because I run a grief community. And a lot of the questions that I have, Catherine, is like, he or she was my soulmate. They've gone over. Can I love another soul? I'm attracted to this. And I mean, there's so many psychological barriers and everything that's there
Absolutely.
as well. And that in itself is a minefield
Yeah.
because I get it all the time. I felt this person was, I was married to this person and I don't think they were my soulmate because now I've met this person and now I think they're my soulmate. And there's so much confusion.
Yeah. Well, there is, and that's why I say it's an evolution. And if you think about how we learn the most in our human condition, it's by the other souls in our lives.
Mm. Oh God, yeah, that's so true. Actually, yeah.
So it's
And if only
constructed.
we could realize that, if only other people could realize that
Yeah,
they
it's
teach us.
divinely constructed. This is all
Yeah,
constructed by the universe and how basically it wants us to learn and grow. And the human condition can be relentless in teaching us
yeah.
lessons.
What a game of life it is.
Yeah. So so it to me, again, that's why I'm the eternal Pollyanna, where I turn it around and go, but this is all for our evolution. And if we can
Yeah.
look at every discomfort as part of our growth, it shifts it, because then it's like, oh, here's the next gift of growth, even though, boy, this hurts like hell. And so,
Mm.
it's people get so mired in their discomfort that they forget that there are golden nuggets all over the place for us to learn.
I
So
love the story, the little analogy. You've probably heard it before about the turtle, the tortoise, the turtle, in the water where it can't feel it's uncomfortable, can't breathe, it's in pain in the inside. It has to retreat, shed its shell
yeah.
in order to grow another shell. It has to be comfortable in being uncomfortable in order to
Yes.
grow.
Yeah. Well, and my favorite thing to say is we don't change unless we're tired enough of ourselves or our situations. But that's
Oh
also
yes.
a cue that either our soul is like, hey, we need to do something different here, or it's like that next point in our
Yeah.
soul path that we are supposed to like turn a page and go into a new chapter. So yeah, we could talk about this
Oh
stuff
my God,
forever.
there's so much
We
we
need it
could.
all
I
together.
want to jump. I want to jump onto your training course and something else because anybody who's listening out there, ladies and gentlemen, Catherine does something really unique, and I have never. I mean, I've been involved in mediumship, holistic, world for many many years as a professional medium for over 2 decades, and she's the only person I met that really teaches from an academic, scientific point of view soul work, if you like, beyond shadow work is all encompassing. But let's talk about how you develop this new, and I want to say it's a new framework
It is a new framework. Yeah.
that is remarkable in its application. How you developed it and who is it for?
So yeah, thank you. And this is everything we've talked about is stuff I'm training people about so that they
Yeah,
go out and help people. So this training is either for, well, really any type of practitioner, coach, or educator or administrator, honestly, that wants to understand what's not working in the healing world.
hmm.
And because there is so much deeper. And so that's
Hmm.
really, who it's for is anybody who wants to go deeper and wants to really help unlock a lot of kind of the blockages and understanding this from a bigger perspective. And so, yes, it is a very unique framework, and it's basically based on what I call my soul health model. It is a trademarked model. It is it's in the shape of a tree. It has 10 different
It's
branches.
beautiful, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. You go and check our site,
Yeah,
drcatherinekelly.com. It's lovely.
it's the only thing I think I would want a tattoo on my body, honestly.
I could see that as a tattoo as well, actually, but that would be an awful lot of work because when you
Yeah,
go and see it, ladies and gentlemen, it's an awful lot of work. There's a lot of
it's
words there.
It's very intricate, but really, it's a very simple concept that our soul is this trunk of the tree, but our
Yeah.
human condition is all of these branches, and all of us deal with these 10 branches. And so my framework is built around the soul health model. In that there's 4 levels of this certification, and the first level is really all about really teaching how the human condition and the soul work together
Mm.
to create our experience. And so
That's
I'm
brilliant. I love
branch
that.
by branch by branch. So
Mm.
physical, emotional, social, interpersonal, environmental. I mean, I go through all 10 branches. And then I talk about the concept of how self-love is such an intricate part of our soul's evolution. And and what I'm doing is basically teaching everything I know from start to finish to get people to the level of doing what I'm doing, if that's the path they choose.
Yeah,
Because I'm at this point now where I can't do this alone, but this is my legacy that I want and need to leave behind, is this
of
framework,
course.
because other people need to understand this in order to help. Now, I was a medical school professor, and I know they don't teach, they teach this much about the spirituality and the soul. So it's interesting that the practitioners who are in this program, my first love of the program is currently running, and they're psychologists, they are nurse administrators, they are therapists in training. I have a naturopath from New Zealand in there. I
Wow.
have all these different practitioners in there, which is, it's such a luscious thing for me, because if I can just like keep spreading the word and then have them go
Yeah.
teach people and then others teach people, that is my soul's purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
I actually love what you're doing. And did you take any, let me ask you this, this is just my own interest. Did you take any kind of cues from Saggioli or Groff or any of those pioneers from the past? Jung, this is something
Yeah.
you've
So,
did.
so
Jungian,
it's
have you kind of gone down a Jungian route?
some of the union, but I'll tell you, and this can sound, I don't know how this is going to sound.
So
I,
you can sound any way you want.
well, let me say this. I actually intentionally don't read a whole lot about other people's theories, because
Right?
I want to create my own. And then what's happened
I
is,
love it.
then what ends up happening, I mean, what's interesting, even in my own training as a psychologist with Carl Jung, they taught about his theory of consciousness.
Hmm.
Never once did they talk about his theory of the soul. Never once did they
I was
mention
going to
it.
say that they don't. He doesn't cover the soul, and actually, neither does the Saggioli really, and neither does Stanislav Grof.
So what happens is, and the interesting thing is, I love this though. I want to say something about modern medicine too. Um, Carl Jung also very much believed in astrology,
He
and
did, yes, he did.
and
He
he
had
had,
his own astrological framework that he
yeah,
worked on actually, because I think, and if correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a bone of contention between him and Freud.
exactly. And he also believed in past lives, because he had a lot of his own past life experiences
That's right, yeah.
that helped him develop his theory. But you're never taught that in traditional psychotherapy training. You're just that, none of that part, the esoteric, the metaphysical world part, is never taught. Now I'm going to go back to Hippocrates, way back.
Oh God, yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
So the field of medicine was built by, basically, they call Hippocrates the father of medicine.
Mm.
What's fascinating is Hippocrates, Plato, Socrates, Galen, all of the philosophers and physicians of the time, basically said, and this is actually written in a quote by Hippocrates, that the soul was present in every illness and in every organ.
Wow,
And yet
that's
you're not taught that
fascinating.
in medical school. So there is no mention about the soul anywhere in medical school. So the interesting thing is, part of what I'm doing is trying to bring what I call ancient wisdom to the modern soul. I'm trying to bring it back, because this isn't new stuff. This is really just bringing back and really helping people strategically understand how it works.
Do you know what I find fascinating, though, Catherine, is that Socrates, Plato, way back those thousands of years ago, were so much more advanced,
Yes.
and yet we're still fighting to find our place and to actually put this concept out there.
Yes.
I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal,
Yeah.
and taking historical, lessons from Plato and Socrates, and
Yeah.
and bringing it to the modern world, because there is a lot that I think that was missing, and it's almost like you're creating this bridge. So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you've got, so how is the first course you use? This is new that you've developed, your new framework. How is that going now? The first students going and they're loving
It
it.
it is, they're loving it and they're having fun. And what's fun for me is when I say something and then their eyes like widen, or they even widen or they're going, oh, so it's like it's starting, like just
Aha
being able to
moments,
tie
yeah.
things together for them has been wonderful. And I've had many of them contact me outside of the live sessions and say, whoa, that was really helpful. And this is
Love
why.
it.
And because I'm literally going branch by branch, and then we're about to enter the time where they're going to start practicing and coaching other people using this. And so it's going to be really fun to see how they start playing with these concepts, with the people that they work with. So it's going great. I feel like I am absolutely in my sandbox because
Yeah.
it is so fun to teach this stuff and have people be so receptive. And I've already had several of them say, "When is level 2 starting?" And so level 2 will be, starting next year. But it's one of those
You're
things where
probably still developing it. I mean, because the way I see it
yeah,
from your point of view, I think, is that it's alive. It
it
has
is.
its own life,
It very much has its own life.
which
Yeah.
is probably indicative as well of the tree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, everybody now, I mean, a lot of these people kind of knew of the tree before, but
Yeah.
now they're really understanding how it works. And I have all these other models and all these, I have them right here, but all these different models that I'm showing them and I'm teaching them how it works. And, it's, again, it's my sandbox. I just have
I
so much
love it.
fun with it. And also just knowing that when you find what you're supposed to do in this world and you get to do it, it is so fun. And this kind of stuff is so necessary. We have
It is.
to understand the soul in order to understand healing. We have to.
And I think it goes a long way to understanding your divine connection and your divine authority, because that's one of the things that I often teach is about your divine authority and understanding that.
Yeah,
I think it's great. Katherine, I want to thank you for being on this. So,
sure.
ladies and gentlemen, if you have enjoyed this and you want to experience this and you're a member of the Holistic Network, Dr. Katherine Kelly is going to be doing a masterclass so that you'll be able to get a taste of what this is all about. This is a new framework. This is a new field. Not a new field in understanding, but this is a new concept that could have dramatic transformational implications in your life. I will definitely, because we've had a lot of issues here. Katherine will also be on some of my other podcasts, but you'll be coming back,
Sure.
and because there's so
Yeah.
much to unpack,
Yeah.
soulmates, and there's so many different things that we want to unpack and talk more of to get this information out there.
Be happy.
And I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing. What would be the final thing that you would want people to know about you, your work, your passion, and your drive, and let anybody out there know about more about the course, how what they can expect from it?
Yeah, wow, there's so much I could say. This sounds dramatic, but I have said for years that the soul will be our salvation. And what I mean by that
Oh, I
is
believe that.
I think if we can just get back in tune with ourselves, because that is, if you look at what's going on in our world, it's because people are so disconnected from their souls. And so if we can just get back to that place of understanding ourselves at that deeper level and learning how the human condition works as a result, we not only could heal, but man, we could solve a lot of the
Hmm.
problems of the world. So that sounds, again, dramatic, and it is, but at the same time, to me, that's why I do my work, is to plant whatever seeds I can to bring peace. Because again,
You're a soul gardener.
yeah, yeah, and I actually use that concept in my book, in my
I
first book.
love that. I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
here was me thinking I was giving you a new nickname.
Well, we can talk about that too, because I have all kinds of metaphors I use. But see, Jacques, this is it. It's like, if I can just, again, spread a few seeds, have
Yeah.
people go, oh, wow, that makes sense. Let me learn more. Then it's like it starts growing. And we need that trickle effect to get
Mm,
going, because it's going to neutralize a lot of the negativity in the world if we can get back to this, because
absolutely.
it's really all love based. This is, we are evolving. What we're supposed to be doing is evolving back to that love state. And we can't do that if we're misaligned. And so to me, that's where soul health really comes in.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a practitioner and you want to transform your practice, then I would urge you to get in touch with Katherine, drkatherinekelly.com. You can also get her on the Holistic Network. You can find her. Actually, we need to add in now, because you've got a new framework, I now have to add in a new section. Because you're the only one in the world, really. So I now need to add a new section in,
And
which
I was
is the
called the pioneer of soul health. So
what is
maybe
it?
that's the
I
new.
love it. Pioneer of soul health. That's phenomenal. So you need to add that in. So looking forward to hearing from you more. Looking forward to
Love
having
it.
more discussions like these. I think they're fascinating.
Love
I
it.
think what you're doing is amazing. I wish you all
That
the
sounds
very
good.
best.
And I know
And for
I think we
all of
got
our
locked up
members
again.
out there, connect with Katherine. Please connect with her.